Oh.
Welcome to Florida Gators Live 21. It's been the week of madness, March Madness. It's been maybe a little disappointing of a bracket compared to how it's really been since COVID. Had a lot of fun games, at least. Florida UConn was a good game. Last night we had BYU Wisconsin. That was a pretty good game. I think we'll start off this show. I'm going to ask you, how's your bracket? What are some of the teams you have left going far?
Honestly, probably the best start to a bracket through the first weekend I've ever had in my entire life. Currently sitting at, last I checked, a 99.8 percentile. Have gotten, I think I have every Sweet 16 game right so far, but one.
Wow.
I have one Sweet 16 team that's wrong, but I think I've gotten the rest right so far to this point. So yeah, I'm currently sitting at 99.8 percentile. Bracket ranks 50,000th out of like 25 million or whatever it is. So I guess that's pretty good. Yeah.
What's your final four?
My final four is Florida, Michigan State, Houston, and Alabama.
Hey, Alabama's looking good. Currently up 12 points on St. Mary's. I think going to halftime now. Other game, Kentucky up by 9 on Illinois. Was just up 16. So Illinois is bringing it back, but I don't like how they've done the slate where Saturday and Sunday they had the 3 games from noon, 3, and 5, and then the other games are all scrambled in at 9 o'clock. I don't like how they've done that. I mean, I guess it was cool because Florida UConn at least was close. Duke Baylor wasn't, and now we're starting to get to the end of the UConn Kentucky Illinois game, and St. Mary's Alabama at least is going to be on in time after halftime, after the Kentucky-Illinois game ends.
Yeah, I don't love it either. I mean, I kind of understand the logic behind it. Like, it's obviously they're trying to take advantage of the primetime slot with putting all these games at the end of the day. But like, it's a weekend. Like, stagger them out. Like, do them like they do the first 2 days of the tournament. Like, that to me seems to work pretty well. Where you just kind of stagger them at the same increment start time, so you sort of have 4. I mean, it won't be 4 games going on simultaneously all day because there's fewer. But yeah, exactly. I don't really understand that either. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, because you have the 4 time slots for each 4 set of brackets throughout the day.
Yeah,
I mean, you can just do that to 2, and like it'd be a lot better because yesterday you had Purdue dominate McNeese, and then I believe the second game was also a blowout yesterday. I can't remember which one it was. Let me double check what that game was. No, these are not in order. Okay, these are not in order. Actually, it wasn't that game, but oh yeah, you said St. John's, Arkansas, where Arkansas, a bad game, but like a close game.
Yeah,
the refs just took over the game.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought we had pretty good refs in our game. We had a couple missed calls, nothing egregious though. Like, I guess we can start going on to talking about where is it? Right here. Gators advanced to Sweet 16. The Florida Norfolk State game. The Gators go up quickly in this game. It's like 42 to 17. We just come out on fire. Walter Clayton's hitting ridiculous 4-point plays. Elijah Martin's hitting shots. Everyone's really clicking to start this game. But then we kind of just let off the gas, and Norfolk State went an 11-0 run to end the first half. And then the second half is just sporadic. We end up winning it by 5, 42 to 37. Not really ideal, but it's also like, I mean, nobody played over 30 minutes in that first game against Norfolk State. So you get your guys rested. They get some nice stats, like Walter Clayton has 23 and Elijah Martin was 17. So they have some pretty good statistical games. But you probably would have liked to win this one by more based on how you started. But I don't think you could have read too much into it before this UConn game.
Yeah. No, I mean, I will say I kind of nailed my score prediction on this one. I said 90-65. It ended up being 95-69. So pretty
Yeah,
close.
that's really close. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, honestly, I mean, yeah, you had that stretch at the end of the half. You weren't playing great. I mean, certainly wasn't a complete 40-minute performance that you want to see. And Todd Golden was upset about that fact.
Mm-hmm.
But like, for me as a fan, like, I got what I wanted to see out of this game. I wanted this to be a game that was not particularly scary at halftime. You know, like, this game felt pretty much out of hand within the opening minutes. And even when I mean, how close did they ever cut it? Did they ever cut it within like
19?
19? Yeah, 19.
I think maybe
So
18.
yeah, so it was never like, even when, you know, Florida had a stretch where it wasn't playing great, this game was never really in doubt at any point, which you know, Auburn can't say the same about their 16 seed game. You know, that game was a little tighter than it should have been throughout. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, those games, sometimes you win those by 40, sometimes you win them by 20. I think Florida ultimately got, like, I agree. I don't think there was anything negative or positive you could really read from that game going into the UConn game. It was just like, took care of business.
Yeah, I think the main problem was that the fact that we got up by 32 points or 33, whatever it was, before we let Norfolk State go on the run. And then, I mean, we scored 42 in the second half. I felt like we couldn't stop them. Like, they were driving in, they were hitting some really tough shots. I mean, for a Norfolk State team, they were really good at making their baskets around the rim. So I'll give them credit for that. But man, it just felt like the defense wasn't there. I mean, they only score 69. You don't even give up 70 points. So it's something you can't really complain about. But it really felt like you should have won this game like 100-40 or 150. And you end up only winning it by, 26 points. So it got to a point where it kind of felt lackluster. But at that point, you couldn't really complain because, again, it was a 1 versus 16 matchup where you cruised.
Yeah, 100%.
However, I do think going into the UConn game, you can kind of see some of those things come into fruition, where some of this bad shooting that we saw at the end of the Norfolk State game felt like we were missing a lot of open shots. It really happened again against UConn. We got up 6-0, and so it's like, oh, we're hot. We're just going to go and roll UConn. And then it's like 6-2, and it's like 10-5 going into the under the 16 timeout. It really felt like we should have been up by like 10, 15 points. We had a lot of dumb turnovers, just lazy turnovers from Walt, some bad passes, missed some open shots, some open layups as well. Like, it felt like we were in control, but it was only a 5-point difference, which we would see later on in the game wasn't that much of a difference.
Yeah, this one kind of had bad vibes from the jump, to be honest with you. Like, it kind of just felt like Florida didn't really, even early in the game, because they controlled, like you said, they controlled for most of the first half. You know, they were up 3 before UConn hit that you know, long shot to
tie it
right before the half. I do think, though, like, you know, there were, like you said, there were turnovers, there were missed shots. There was, you know, I thought that, you know, frankly, like, I want to give credit to UConn and Dan Hurley, because I think that they had a really good game plan for this. And
Absolutely.
They executed it well. I mean, they put ball pressure on Florida, the likes of which the Gators haven't really seen, at least in a while. And so, you know, I think, frankly, I don't know if Florida has the ball handlers to handle that. They got better throughout the game, but I mean, I think you saw the effects that had. It really, you know, the stuff that they were running on offense was working better. And frankly, Florida was just fortunate they were missing shots. UConn only shot, I mean, like 32% in the first half or something like that. They were pretty inefficient, missed a lot of jacking up threes that they were honestly pretty decent looks, and they were missing them.
Jackson Johnson, congrats on the win against UConn. Thanks. Your Crimson Tide up 13 at the half on St. Mary's. Looking good for y'all to make the Sweet 16. Yeah, it felt like we did give up some good looks in that first half. I mean, I also felt like we also missed some good looks of our own and like lackadaisical turnovers. Like stuff that UConn, they actually really didn't take advantage of well. Because they had very little points off turnovers compared to the amount they had. They had like 10 turnovers and 0 points off turnovers in that first half. So they didn't really
Mhm.
take advantage of them, but
Yeah.
they at least got those turnovers, which, I mean, you don't score, but you prevent Florida from scoring. That's 10 possessions there where Florida's probably scoring on 3, 4, 5 maybe of them. That could add up to a whole lot of points there. So they took advantage of that from that perspective. But, I mean, even in the second half, we felt like we were just kind of gliding through it, cruising through it. Like, it felt like a game where they thought they were up by 20, but they were really
Mhm.
trailing in that second half by 5 points for most of that second half, 5+ points in that range for most of that second half until we did take control in the final couple minutes.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, like I spent most of this game
Mm.
feeling like it was a loss.
Mm.
I was kind of mentally preparing for the season. I mean, because they were doing all the things that you got to do to beat this team. They were forcing
Mm-hmm.
turnovers for a while there. They were I mean, they were really putting in the work on the offensive glass.
They were.
Had a lot of second chance opportunities that again they just couldn't capitalize on, both the second chance opportunities and the turnovers. They just weren't shooting it very well on the other end. But I felt, you know, especially when they came out of the half and kind of started hitting some shots and stretched that lead out a little bit, because I was like, I mean, the only thing, like the only reason Florida's even in this game right now, frankly, is because they're missing shots. And I was afraid
Mm-hmm.
if that changed, that we would see the game change. And it did for a little bit there. You know, I mean, I just think they responded really nicely. I mean, obviously, you know, guys like Martin and obviously Clayton hit some really clutch shots there at the end. Free throws weren't good. I mean, again, it kind of just felt like the perfect storm coming together to end Florida's season. Like they were abysmal shooting free throws in the second half. You know, made a couple when it really mattered down at the very end, but some real missed opportunities, and it just was, I don't know, nothing was really going right. Wasting possessions where they had opportunities to take the lead or at least cut into it, and it just it turned around. The defense was lights out. I mean, held them without making a field goal for a 5-minute stretch there, from like
Mm-hmm.
7 minutes left to 2 minutes left.
Yep.
And you know, the offense finally picked it back up on the other end and gave you just enough. I mean, it was certainly a UConn battle to the very end, even when it
They
kind of
did.
looked like it was over when the Florida had like a 6-point lead.
Yeah, I think something we saw in this game that we haven't really seen much of throughout the season is UConn's length in their guards. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Hassan Diarra is only 6'2", but he's a pretty lengthy guy. He got a lot of or not a lot, but like he got a couple offensive rebounds, got some points in the paint. Liam McNeely, 6'7", he's having
Yeah.
to be guarded by like a Will Richard. But he has to be guarded by Will Richard because Elijah Martin's only 6'2". So they had some trouble with their size. And it's not like most teams where they have their size and their bigs like we do, where we have a 7'2". I mean, sorry, yeah, 7'1" Mikey Hanglon,
Mm-hmm.
6'11" Condon, 6'10" or
Mm-hmm.
Chinyelu. So like we're used to teams having size inside that we're bigger than, not having size on the outside that can really bother those guards defensively, which
Yeah.
really was a big story of the first 35 minutes of that game. Now, one thing I keep seeing people saying, is that UConn kind of dominated this game for like 35 minutes. Florida led for like 18 minutes of that first half. So UConn didn't really dominate us in the first half. Like we led for a majority. I mean, we probably led all together for 20 plus minutes of a 40-minute game. Like we did our fair share of winning in that game. This wasn't a game where UConn dominated from tip to the last 5 minutes and Florida kind of just took over and got lucky. It was a close first half game where Florida had the edge in the first half, then UConn had the edge for most of the second half, but Florida was able to close it out because Walter Clayton Jr. is the best player in the country, or one of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
And he hits 2 clutch threes in the final 3 minutes of that game. Will Richard also hit a clutch three. You mentioned it, where we held him scoreless for like 5 minutes. We brought it
Mm-hmm.
within 1 point, and then Solo Ball hits a crazy three to bring it back within 4, or bring it back to a 4-point lead. We go down the other end. It looks like it's going to be a turnover. Will Richard grabs it and just chucks up a three, drains it to bring it back within 1. So, I mean, I don't think UConn really was as dominant as people think. They were pretty dominant for the 15 minutes in the first half. But like outside of that, it was a close game that really Florida had the upper hand in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a couple moments that really stand out to me from the second half. Like I think that I mean, first of all, the turning point in the game was that, you know, that moment where it was a 2-point game and Clayton just drills the NBA
Yep.
three with a guy in his face, give him a 1-point lead, and then force a quick, you know,
Yep.
Will Richard really heads up play.
He
Will
was
Richard
the
knocks the
turning point,
ball
in
out.
my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, because Richard knocks the ball out on the other
Yep.
end, and then Condon gets the board, tosses it to Richard, who heads up play, is already going back down the other side, and a huge dunk there to give Florida a 3-point lead. And that was really the turning point. I mean, I think UConn tied it again after that, but it was from that point on, it was Florida controlling the game and UConn playing catch up, and it really reversed the trend for most of the first half. I would also like to give a shout out to Elijah Martin. You know,
Oh my
obviously,
God. Yep.
in addition to, I mean, he kind of like borderline saved the season. I mean, had some nice free throws, 18 points total. But how about the two plays where I think only one of them actually counted as a rebound, but the two plays off the missed free throw, the one where he knocks the ball out after the missed free throw and he gets rebounded on the outside by like Hauk or something. And then the other one where he rebounds it himself, goes in and gets the easy layup. Like, two what would have been wasted possessions that he salvaged there. I mean, in a game where every point mattered. Like, the line on this one between Florida going home and going to the Sweet 16, it was pretty thin, but it was plays like that really you know, proved to be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you said you think the turning point was when we got the Clayton 3, and then Will Richard slammed to increase the lead to 3 points. I think it was about 10 minutes left in the game, and no one was doing good on offense. I think they got their largest lead of the night. UConn did by like 8 points, but then Will Richard starts cooking. He hits a 3. He gets to the line. He makes a layup, and that's a difference of us possibly being down 10 plus points going into that final like 5-minute stretch of the game, and us only being down by 5. I think that deserves a lot of credit for Will Richard. He obviously then hits the 3 to bring it back within 1. So I feel like he had the 3 guards really all had their start points, where Elijah Martin was the guy at the start of the game where he was the only one who could score for us. And then Will Richard in that like last 10 minutes where he took a big role to keep us within distance. And then Walter Clayton to close it out and give us the lead that UConn wouldn't be able to recover from.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice turnaround for Will Richards, sort of even within the game, because he was kind of a liability in the first half. Like,
if you include
the taking bad
State
shots.
Game. Oh, yep.
Yeah. Sorry, he was bad in the Norfolk State game too.
He was 1 for 8 from the field going into the second half against UConn.
Yeah.
Including the Norfolk State game where the one was an open 3 with like 5 minutes left against Norfolk State. So Richard had a really bad game against them, a really bad first half against UConn. So, I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was really all I was going to say. I was, you know, between that, you had 3 turnovers in this game too, just a couple really ugly mistakes that were really costly for Will Richard. And then, you know, he just proved to be as impactful down the stretches as anyone was. And Walt did the same. Walt had some really bad misses early in this game.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. I've seen people say like the balls are overinflated or something. I don't know, but like they were missing. I mean, they were bricking shots like off the front of the rim. Like they weren't even close. Like it was very bizarre.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were talking early on about how UConn was missing shots. I think Walt started like 1 of 5 in this game.
Yeah.
1 of 4. Like our best player, the best player on the court, had like 3 turnovers and like 1 of 5 in the first 10 minutes of this game. Like, I mean, we got lucky. They missed some shots, but UConn, now give credit to their defense, saying you can give credit to ours. So what was I about to say? Yeah. I mean, give credit to them. But Walt was also just missing some stuff. I think he went from the field, or not including 3, 1 of 6 from 2. And that one was like a turnaround jumper he made in that last like 5-minute stretch of the game. Yeah. So he was like 0 of 5 from 2. He had a horrible missed layup where it was a wide open layup. He got past the defender with a nice move and just whiffs the layup somehow. So, I mean, we got lucky a little bit. They did. I mean, you can say most deserving team. I think it was us because we ended up winning. I mean, we made the clutch plays that UConn didn't make.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, it's like UConn had every opportunity to pull away in this game. I mean, frankly, like I think Florida was very lucky that this was even a tie game at halftime. Like that's kind of how I look at it. So I mean, to me, like UConn missed the opportunities to capitalize when Florida was really struggling offensively. They were missing shots of their own, and Florida gave them the ball. I mean, they gave them the game. They they doubled them up in turnovers. We're getting Florida ended up winning the rebounding battle here. I think there was a time where that wasn't the case, but I mean, again, they
No.
were getting just straight up bullied on the offensive boards, which is very bizarre for this Florida team with the size and skill that they have. So kind of, I mean, UConn, I mean, it's got to be a really frustrating game for UConn because everything they tried to do worked. They just couldn't capitalize on the opportunities they created for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is why UConn was an 8 seed this year.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't capitalize. They couldn't make the game-winning plays. I mean, go back to February 15th, where UConn lost a game to Seton Hall. Now, Seton Hall may have been the worst team in the Power 5 this year. If you follow JVR bracketology, he does a thing where he eliminates teams throughout the year from at-large contention. He eliminated Seton Hall in early January, and then because Seton Hall was so bad in conference play, he eliminated them again just before that UConn game because they were that bad. And UConn has a loss to that Seton Hall team. I remember watching this game. Alex Caravan, he put up 20 points, which 20 points, you look at that on paper, that's a real solid performance. But in those game-winning situations, he was missing some open shots. I mean, McNeely only had 11 that game. He had 22, I believe, in our game. Liam McNeely went for
I think so.
22, where he missed some open shots down the stretch of that game. So it's a team that just hasn't been able to hit those critical shots. Now, we were the more talented team. That's probably why we won this game. But UConn has 9 players that were a top 100 recruit as well. So let's not act like that this UConn team just isn't talented and that Dan Hurley just had an unlucky year with coming off a bad class or everyone leaving for the NBA after back-to-back years. He has talent on this team. So this is a good win for this team. And I think this is also going to be really big for going into that Sweet 16 matchup. If we had cruised past UConn after cruising past Norfolk State, and I mean, Colorado State's currently up by 4 in the first half against Maryland, so we don't know. But if we're really confident going into that game, maybe overly confident, one of those teams, like a Maryland especially, could get off to a quick start, and it could be something that would be impossible for us to come back from.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think winning a game like this gives me a lot more confidence moving forward in the sense that, I think this team needed some adversity. I mean, look, they have been heralded as the favorite to win the whole thing. Everyone's been picking them in the last week since they won the SEC. I mean, obviously the Georgia game was a battle, but it was a weird kind of battle because Georgia dominated it for one half and then Florida dominated it for another half and just came up short. It wasn't a battle like this was. Florida hasn't played a game like this in a pretty long time. This was the first game that really put pressure on Florida to kind of have.
I mean, not UConn, UNC maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
Even
Missouri was a little bit different. Yeah, I mean, but win or lose, just the fact that you're in a battle like this and you have to respond with your back against the wall late.
Or even a game where neither team led by 10 points or more.
Yeah,
we haven't played many close games this year.
Yeah,
obviously the most double-digit point wins in the SEC. Our games have mostly been okay. We dominate this team for 30 minutes and we win by 20 points. Or it's been, this team gets off to a hot start and they're up 15, 20, 26 points on us and we have to battle back and in the final 5 minutes we have a chance. Yeah. We haven't seen many games that from start to finish either team could have won it the entire time.
Yeah, no, I mean I think this was important. I mean,
Rob,
they won the game.
And the Gators suck. They're a top 16 team in the country. That's all I gotta say. They're a top 16 team in the country, and we gotta win. We dethroned the back-to-back national champions. To be the man, you gotta beat the man. I do know though, just because you killed Jesse James doesn't mean you are Jesse James. So we'll see what happens after on Thursday.
No, I mean, like, I was terrified for this game. I'll be honest. Like, this game
Yeah, I
really scared
gotcha.
me. I did like, I mean, like, so I agree. Like, I think UConn's not great, but I think beating Dan Hurley, who I think is a brilliant coach, and
Absolutely.
a team that just has the psychology of having won back-to-back titles. Like, yeah, I think it's really huge for their confidence. I think it's a reminder that they're gettable. That if they don't play their best basketball, they can easily lose. They're not just going to cruise their way through this tournament. But I think having that adversity and overcoming it and staying alive does make me feel a lot more confident going into this Sweet 16 game against whoever wins this Maryland Colorado State game.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anyone else we should really? I mean, Thomas Houck had a pretty good game. 7 points, 5 to 6 from free throw. He had a
Mm-hmm.
140 offensive rating, which was second highest on the team. So that's a pretty
Yeah.
good game from here. Micah only played 11 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
which really shocks me because Ruben Chinilu was in foul trouble for that like entire second half.
Yeah.
So I'm shocked Hanthought only played 11 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, they just went with a lot of guards in this game. Although we
Yeah,
didn't really see much Urban Klavjar either. So,
he only played
yeah,
2 minutes.
I mean, the starters really just played the starters, and Hauk really just kind of carried it here.
Yeah, Aberdeen only got 13. How many minutes does Aberdeen average? Like 20?
Yeah, I mean, definitely more than 13.
Which I mean can also be attested to that we dominate nearly every team we play, or we've had injuries as well. So Aberdeen is one of the starters. So maybe in these true like close games, we're gonna see less of Aberdeen and just like
Mm-hmm.
the 7 players that we really trust to go out there and beat these good teams. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
not
I
though,
mean,
because Aberdeen was really good against Auburn when we played them at Auburn. So
well, I think part of it, I mean, I just think what UConn did today I think Todd for most of this game got out coached, honestly. Like,
that's
I
yeah.
think, I think Florida was really slow to adjust to a lot of the things UConn was throwing at them, and they finally did before it was too late. But, no, I mean, what I'm getting at is just that I think everything about the plan today kind of had to be adjusted on the fly because when they came out of the gate, UConn strategy, I mean, even though Florida was able to hold the lead for most of the half, like the game was playing in a favorable way, playing out in a favorable way for UConn. Like it was playing out how UConn wanted to, wanted this game to play out to stay in it. I mean, how Florida only scored 31 points in the first half?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of the plan from Todd here was thrown off in this game.
I predict by the end of the year that Mount Verde freshman class will have Montverde.
The Montverde, yeah.
Okay, we'll have one thing in common. They will have all lost to the Gators. Let's see who else is on that team. So there's Cooper Flag. I mean, we just
Yeah.
beat Liam McNeely.
Baylor
I think
player, right? One of the players on Baylor who just lost, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, and I think there might have been 2 players on that from UConn. Hold on, let me double check. Montverde.
There was like 5. It was like 5 dudes on that team that are in this tournament or something like that. I remember them showing the graphic.
2024. Here we go. I got it. 2024 roster. Robert Wright, that's from Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
Is Curtis Givens? Does he play for Iowa State?
Curtis Givens. Does he play for doesn't he play for LSU?
Maybe. Oh yeah, he plays for LSU. I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Curtis. I know Iowa State has a player named Curtis something. G, I think. Asa Newell. That's it.
Asa Newell.
That's
Oh,
who we're
from
forgetting.
Georgia.
And Derek
Yeah.
Queen for Maryland.
Who we
However,
very
Maryland's
well.
currently down by 8 points early in
Yeah.
that game. So, I mean, we'll get into that later. Do you have anything else you want to say on these 2 games?
Not really much on Norfolk State. I mean, you beat a 16 seed the way you want to
Yep.
beat. Maybe not quite the way you want to beat a 16 seed, but you
You
didn't
beat them
become
comfortably.
you didn't become Virginia or Purdue this year, and that's the
No.
ultimate goal. I mean, this game today was, I mean, first of all, probably the biggest emotional roller coaster I've been on watching a Florida sporting event in a pretty long time. I mean, obviously not thrilled with the way the team played for most of the game, but extremely thrilled that they found a way to win. And I mean, like you said, I mean, it really does kind of give me more confidence that this game played out the way it did than it would have if Florida just came out and was shooting 50% from 3 and won by 15. You know what I mean?
Yep. My final thoughts on this will be we haven't made it past the second round since 2017.
Yeah.
And that was done by Mike White with Billy Donovan's players. where you have Todd Golden come here in year 3 with all of his own players. Denzel Aberdeen was a year 1 guy, right? Yeah, Denzel Aberdeen and Will Richard are the 2 year 1 guys on the roster. So
actually, wait, I thought Mike White recruited Denzel Aberdeen. Are you sure, Todd?
I think he did, but I'm pretty sure he was a freshman.
Oh, okay.
He was retained by Todd
Got
Golden.
Got it.
So I still think that counts for Todd Golden guy. So I'm really happy. It seems like Todd Golden, really good chance that he can stay here for a while as long as he doesn't leave. So I'm just happy to make it to that second weekend. And Colorado State's now up by 10 points. I mean, maybe we'll get a nice matchup against Colorado, 12-seeded team in the Sweet 16, which could favor us to go to the Elite 8. So I'm excited to see where that leads us. All right, let me do this real quick. Oh, wrong thing. Oh, the graphic is gone. Oh, wait, there it is. Okay. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football. See what our partner Win Agency has to say about its sponsorship. Experience with us. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. You can contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. I will share the email address in the chat. Go. That is passed. Ooh. Remove that. Oh. I went through the 5 stages of grief at the 8-minute mark. I was at acceptance that we lost. I don't think I was at the point to where I thought we were going to lose this game. Honestly, the last time I was at that point was the 4-minute mark against Georgia. Even before that, I honestly thought we were going to beat Georgia even when we got down by 26 points. I thought, and then I didn't reach the part that, like, okay, we're going to lose this game until 4 minutes. And then at the 1-minute mark, I thought we won that game. So, grief can go in crazy stages.
Yeah, I was right there with you, Rob, to be fair. Not super proud to say that if you could read my group chat messages from, midway through the second half, I was kind of crashing out, not going to lie. I was kind of crashing out. But they got the job done.
I've always been someone who's been in chats during games over the years. And I've learned I kind of just need to stay away from them because people overreact.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To every single dribble, every single shot, every single foul. I mean, did you see the comments that Hurley made after the game?
Yeah.
I mean, going to the locker room, I think he was talking to the Baylor players, and who screwed UConn? I mean, the refs? I guess he's talking about.
I don't understand.
But I haven't seen a single person on Twitter say that, okay, that was some horrible officiating. Yeah. Like, there's missed calls and bad calls every single game. That's just going to happen. That's human nature. But, I thought it was pretty even. Early on, there were some pretty interesting calls in Florida. Ruben Chinilu in that first minute was called for a foul when a UConn player jumped on his shoulders. That was interesting. And when Will Richard fell and Liam McNeely walked onto Richard and that's foul on Richard. I don't know the rule there, but I feel like if a player's on the ground, you just walk on him, that shouldn't be a foul on that player. I mean, I don't know. But Rob, when Martin and Chinilu missed both their free throws, I about had a stroke. When we were down 1 and Chinilu got fouled, I was like, okay, we're gonna have a tied game here. I assumed he was gonna miss one but make the other. And then he missed both. That may have been the lowest point for me in that game because you missed both free throws when you had a chance to tie it. I wasn't expecting us to take the lead. I was expecting us to tie it, and Chin misses both. Yeah. Oh man! And then they sent Condon to the line late in that game as well, and he ends up making both of his free throws, I believe. So huge sigh of relief that we do win that game. There were some points though. You brought it up, where it's okay, we're going to lose this game.
Yeah. No, going back to the Hurley outburst after the game, the funniest part about that is, did you see on Friday after they beat Oklahoma, he was like, you know, I think it's unfortunate that some of my like antics have overshadowed the basketball that's been played here over the last 3 years, and kind of was like honestly like pretty like self-aware and apologetic about it, and then like less than 48 hours later, go and do this. Like, come on, man.
And yeah, I mean, the other comments he made, he was asking Duke fans to cheer for UConn and boo Florida.
Oh yeah, saw that.
I mean,
Because of his brother. His brother's Bobby Hurley.
yep. Did Bobby Hurley play at Duke?
Yeah, Bobby Hurley. Yeah, Bobby Hurley
Okay.
played at Duke.
Because I know he's the coach at Arizona State now.
Yeah, no, he played at Duke.
Okay.
I want to say he was on Duke, like on like the Christian Laettner teams, like the like early 90s. Yeah. Late 80s,
All right,
early 90s.
let's see. We got Kentucky up by 8 with 1 minute to go. Maryland's brought it back within 5 now. And Alabama up by 8 as well with 15 to go. So we got some interesting games here. Seems like Kentucky's going to hold on. The SEC doing really well in the second round. I mean, we went 8-5 or 8-6 in the first round. A lot of backlash, people being like, "Oh, they shouldn't have been in," when really only one of the teams were even favored to win their games that ended up losing. So
was that Missouri? Was it Missouri? I assume
it was Missouri. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben McCollum takes a job at Iowa. That's a pretty good hire for Iowa. I assume Bennett Starks is going to follow him to Iowa as well. I mean, what he did there at Drake in 1 year, got them their first tournament win. We talked about it last week in a while. Don't know if we got the exact time they did, but it was a while. So that's a pretty good hire for them. But you ready to talk some football? Something we didn't do last week?
Yeah, let's do it.
We just talked about it. The Gators, the basketball team, is heading to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2017. Todd Golden has this team being the second most picked team to win the national championship, but maybe even being the media darling. I mean, if you switch Cooper Flag out and Duke is still the same team, we'd probably be the most picked team, even if they had someone of a good replacement for Cooper Flag. I don't know how to put it because they wouldn't be as good of a team without Flag. But if you took him away or his name away, then there would be no more love. I don't know what I'm getting at here, but
no, I see your point. Like
yeah,
you're saying, like if it wasn't, if they just had a very good point guard, or not point guard, but sorry, a very good like forward like Flag, but not someone that's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
That's my point. If they had someone who's maybe like a projected top 20 pick instead, then Florida may be the number 1 projected team to win the tournament. But where I'm getting at here is year 1, Todd Golden, 16-17. Now, Colin Castleton got injured in that year. So in like early to mid SEC play. But year 1, it didn't look too good for Todd. Go to the transfer portal. Walter Clayton, interesting pickup from Iona. Played with Patino. We didn't really know how that was going to go. Zion Pullen, late pickup from UC Riverside. He was a late pickup. People don't remember. But it's like, we don't really know how that's going to be. We didn't really add any superstars. Tyrese Samuel averaged 10 in the Big East with Seton Hall. So it's like, we don't really add any big names in the portal. Maybe some guys who like Walter Clayton was someone people really did like.
Micah too. Micah was a backup at Marshall, I think. I don't think he was even a starter at Marshall.
He was freshman of the year in the I know he's freshman of the year in this.
Oh, was he Sun Belt freshman of the year? Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he produced. Honestly, didn't realize he produced like that.
I think he was like 8-8 as a freshman at Marshall.
Okay.
But again, it's not really a big name in the portal. Big stature guy, but not really a big name. So people didn't really know how year 2 was going to go. Slow start, 1-3 in SEC play, and it looks like the Todd Golden area isn't going to go well. But then things just flip. We played like a top 15 team in the country probably last year to end the season. Then this year we're a top 4 team, a number 1 seed, advancing to the Sweet 16 with title aspirations. How can Billy Napier rejuvenate things here at Florida, going from someone that 99% of the fan base wanted fired after that Texas A&M, even the Miami loss, more people wanted him fired. And then the A&M game you lose that game, and everybody wanted Billy fired, or he knew he needed to be fired in order to advance. So how can he go from such a low to bringing Florida to a national presence, like how Todd Golden has done for the basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, I think it's important to kind of first obviously point out that football and basketball are not the same thing, in the sense that turning something around in basketball is a lot easier. It requires less
Yep.
capital invested. It requires less to go right. I mean, I think you saw, like, last year, just getting a couple good portal hits really turned the team around in one off season. And
Yep.
then kind of even more so this year. I mean, I think you look at, how costly the defense proved to be in the postseason
Mm-hmm.
last year. What do you do? And you go in the portal and get Elijah Martin, who's probably the best on ball defender on the team. So,
And Ruben
to
Chinilu.
and Ruben Giniolo. So, like, I think if there's a through line here, it's that I think Todd is a guy who has really embraced what modern college sports has become. I
Mm-hmm.
think Todd understands, I mean, especially in basketball, like, I think high school recruiting, I mean, and not to, I mean, because he's got a good incoming high school class, certainly
Yep.
the best he's signed so far.
2
But
top
I
50
do think
recruits.
Yeah, but I do think Todd has recognized that that is less important in basketball, because all you need to do, I mean, not all you need to do, but, like, if you go and can land a couple really successful, like, first team all conference players from the mid-major ranks, those guys are ready, like, to come in and immediately
Mm-hmm.
be like all SEC caliber players. So, to me, what does Billy need to do to have success more like Todd? I mean, I think part of it is, I think Billy is still a little bit reluctant to embrace all the resources and opportunities at your disposal. I mean, I think we saw a small transfer portal class this offseason, which was, a lot of it was for logistical reasons, to be fair. I mean,
Yep.
they didn't have the open spots, and maybe we'll see more attrition after spring ball and more guys coming in. But even when Golden was losing, you've seen progression. Yeah, I think that's fair too. I think Golden is better at bringing in players to fill the identity that they want to
Well,
fill.
I like to say year 1, which ended up being a pretty big failure. Even,
Mhm.
I mean, we were a bubble team before Castleton got hurt, where he played through Castleton, your best player. And that's something that we see him not really do now, play through the big. And we ran, I think we ran like a 2-guard, 3 big set with when we had Castleton here, because the guards weren't really that skilled that he had. So we saw him
Mhm.
play out of his system until we got those guys there. So that's exactly what Billy needs to do.
Mhm. Yeah, and just, I think, and I will say this. I'm not sure that all of the things that Florida needs to do as a football program to have the kind of relative success that the basketball program's having right now, I'm not sure all of those are on Billy Napier, because let's just be real. I mean, report this week came out that I saw, I can't remember from who, that Florida is expected to, in terms of basketball NIL, be one
Oh
of,
yeah.
if not like maybe like the top player in the SEC this offseason. Well, I don't think, even if you take the most like optimistic vision, I don't think Florida's spending on NIL like that relative for football. Like, I don't think they're
Well,
spending at an elite level relative to the
what do
rest of the
you
conference.
for football? What do you define as elite? Like what top numbers would you
As
say is elite?
much as Georgia and
Well,
Texas A&M.
I think Georgia isn't spending as much as Texas and A&M and Ohio State did. I
Yeah,
know. Well,
that's
from what
true.
I've been told, Florida's spending around that 10 range, which is like Georgia's probably around 8, but Georgia also has proven production
Hmm.
to still get those elite recruits,
Yeah,
unlike Billy. So when we're spending a little bit less
yeah.
and a less proven production, that is going to change things. I will say, again, transfer portal, basketball is a lot different. When you look at 3 of the top 4 teams in the country in college basketball, Florida, well, our starting 5 is all transfers. Yeah, our starting 5, except Condon. 4 of our starting 5 are transfers. You
Hmm.
look at Auburn, Janai Broom was a transfer. Chad Baker Mazzara was a transfer. Denver Jones, right? Wasn't he a transfer?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he was a transfer. The rest, I think Miles Kelly was also a transfer. So it's like a lot of their roster is transfers. I think you also look at Houston, LJ Cryer. He's a transfer, their best player. I think Milos Uzan is also a transfer. Or yeah, Milos. for Houston. So the only team in that 1 seed range that's not all transfers is Duke, but they have like 5 top 10 or top first round picks in freshmen that they were able to recruit, which you're not really going to be able to recruit a Cooper Flag, Colin Knippel, Malachi, Nguno, all to Florida. We're not going to spend that much, and we don't have the pull that Duke does. So Billy is really Golden is really doing things the way in basketball that is proven to win right now. And then you look at football. I mean, you look at the top teams. Ohio State now, they did take some transfers. They actually took some elite transfers like Caleb Downs, Will Howard. I mean, Howard's
Quinshon
Judkins, I think, ended up being less valuable than we thought he would be for that team. But because like they still had Travion Henderson. But the meat and potatoes of that team, the offensive line, besides like Josh Simmons, was 4 5-star recruits. Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ebuka, Carnell Tate. Those are top 100, number 1 overall recruits. And same thing on the defense with JT Tuimoloa and Jack Sawyer. They're bringing in some elite transfers to combine with their elite recruits. And it's not a lot of transfers. They're not taking 15 transfers. It's like 10, but they're really impactful guys. But when you look at what Florida's done this past year, now we're going into year 4 now. Less examples of us trying to add elite transfers because we're not really at the point where we're winning a natty. So like it's hard to really tell what Billy would do if he did have those elite recruits as well. But it seems like Billy, what you were trying to say or what you were saying, is trying to focus more through recruiting than the transfer portal. When he really needs to open his mind more to that transfer portal.
Yeah. Well, I think Billy has a clear vision of how he wants to build the program. And I think in some ways that vision's good. I think in some ways that vision might be a little bit outdated to how you actually need to build a program now. But like, I don't think building through recruiting is bad. I mean, you need a stable base. And because if you don't get that, you become Mike Norvell at Florida State this year. And I don't think any of us want that.
Yep.
But
Rob's, sorry. Sound this real quick.
No, we can go into that. I mean, I think that's
Billy,
part of it, Rob.
I'll read it out for the listeners on Rob says, but Billy said himself he will not get into bidding wars. I also think what you define as a bidding war could be different from what Billy does. Because if you don't think it was a bidding war for Dallas Wilson, I mean, we probably offered him multiple packages to come here, like to Oregon and Miami, even we heard was trying to get him as well. So I do think there is a little bit of leeway with a bidding war.
The only thing I will say about Dallas Wilson is, in that specific example, is like that. Yes, but if Oregon was willing to liquidize the Phil Knight money and go all out to keep Dallas Wilson, I don't think Florida was prepared to go shot for shot there. Like, you know what I mean? I think that's kind of what Rob means. Like, even then, like we made a competitive offer to Dallas Wilson from what it sounds like. And then Oregon sort of went like, okay, we're tired of dealing with this. We can go get other guys. We'll move on from this battle. I mean, obviously they're not afraid to go put together a big package like that and throw it to someone, but I just think, ultimately Billy hasn't won more than 9 games in a season here, and that's counting a bowl win this year. Like, hasn't won more than 8 games. Yeah, hasn't won more than 8 games. So, you got to start winning at some point. And like, I understand the logic of you don't want to, like overinvest yourself in these transfers and then cause problems down the line. Like, I understand you're trying to build the program to be stable and successful in the long term, but also you got to start winning in the short term. And I think that's something that Todd has recognized, because the way Todd's portaled this team so far, it's to never have a true rebuilding year. And I think even with everyone that's set to leave this team this year, I don't think next year has to be a rebuilding year.
No, I see it as a potential top 10 team again.
It could be, because it's going to require hitting in the portal again, but maybe if Condon comes back, we'll see what happens with the NBA draft and stuff. But if like Condon comes back, Micah comes back, maybe Denzel comes back, and the freshman coming in, you go portal some guards, like you could have a really good roster here again this year. And part of that's because I think Todd is not willing to let this roster drop below what he sees as the acceptable floor.
Yep. Yeah, it's because he's brought in some multiple year transfers as well as developed his own guys. I mean, Will Richard was a 3-year player here as a transfer, but like you mentioned, we're keeping the roster, like we lose our guards, but we probably keep our bigs. And we have another guard off the bench in Denzel Aberdeen, who has proven to be an all SEC level player, possibly at starter. And then you talked about our NIL budget is going to go through the roof in basketball and probably going to go after a top guard in the transfer portal. So, I mean, he's doing that. But I think we saw Billy this past offseason go and get a top 10 class that may not even be finished yet, with news of Javari Flowers starting to heat up for Florida. So that still might be a top 8. I think we're 8, so probably top 7 class if we were able to finish off and land Javari Flowers. But I think that also does develop the depth and kind of like how Georgia does it. It just feels like Billy's trying to build like Georgia, but he's not Georgia, which, it's a good and bad thing, because if he ends up succeeding, we should be in the long haul. I mean, we should be in the line for a very long, successful tenure of Billy Napier. But with just this middling that it's been, it's just going to be a bunch of mediocrity. I mean, because maybe DJ is just a one-time thing where he gets lucky and maybe he's able to get 9 wins the next 2 years. And it's like you can't fire a coach after winning 9 games, but then he loses Lagway and we only win 8 or 7 or 8. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, that was just a rebuilding year. And then we continue to only win 8, 7 games. So it could develop into a problem there.
Yeah, and I think like that's been probably kind of what you said earlier has been my primary frustration with Billy's sort of program building philosophy is that, you want to be Georgia, like that's fine. You want to bang, you want to hit in the trenches, you want to play 12 personnel, like that's cool. That's a good vision. But the problem is when you're doing that against Georgia, who does it better than you with more talent than you, is not going to go well. And I think that's where we've still seen Florida fail to get over that hump under Billy Napier. We even saw this year. I mean, you can litigate, what would have happened had Lagway stayed in the game. We don't know against Georgia. But I mean, I think we know that what Billy does can be good enough against a team like LSU that's probably like pound for pound pretty similarly talented, or against, a team like Ole Miss that maybe doesn't match up great against what Florida's trying to do. Like, it's still, when you play the Texases, when you play the Georgias, that talent differential still really shows itself. So what I think Todd has done pretty well here has sort of adjusted the philosophy and the style to what he's got, whereas I'm not sure Billy's been able to do that as well.
Absolutely. So how do we define the success of football compared to basketball? Basketball, we discussed it. It's a lot easier to reflip a roster in 3 years than it is for football. And I mean, now Golden's looking to hopefully lead us on a path to a national title in year 3. I don't think Billy can do that. But what does Billy need to do for you to have like absolute confidence in him going forward? Like I think we both have for Todd Golden at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple things. I mean, I will say, like, I think a lot of it is just like, first of all, get to the college football playoff. Ideally get there and win a game or two at least. Because I do think, and I've heard people say this, and I think there might be something to it, that in this new era of the sport, the idea of being like a James Franklin or something, like a coach like that has the team in position year in and year out, but hasn't gotten over the hump and won it all yet, that might not be viewed with the same sort of like negative perception, because at the end of the day, like in the 12-team playoff era, like, when it was a 4-team playoff, you were pretty clearly in the caliber of a team that was capable of having a good enough season to be in that field, or you're not. But like now the name of the game is just getting there. And because it's 12-team playoff, like a program like Florida should, if things are going well, reasonably expect that pretty much every season you're at least, if not in that field, you're in that mix. So, I mean, I think to me, like that's what success looks. I mean, like if you want to like quantify, like what does a Sweet 16 run in the tournament look like? It's getting to the college football playoff and winning a game and looking like you belong there. And I mean, maybe that sounds like I'm aiming low, but I mean, this hasn't been a nationally relevant program in a pretty long time. I think that's the first step it needs to take to get back there.
Yeah, well, how I was about to compare it was to, if you make the NCAA tournament, it's going to be pretty tough to fire you unless you're every single year on the bubble. I mean, Texas just fired their head coach after making the tournament. They lost in the first 4, so I don't know if you count that as making the tournament. But they made it to the tournament last year and this year. didn't win a game, they still fired him. So it's hard to compare. But do you think Mike White would have left Florida if instead of going to the NIT, he made the NCAA tournament? Does Scott Strickland try harder to keep, or if Scott Strickland wanted to keep Mike White, he probably could have kept Mike White.
I think that I think that Mike White left because Mike White knew he was going to be entering the next season on the hot seat. I think that had he made the tournament that year, I still think that would have been the case, barring like a Sweet 16 run, because getting to the first or second round, we knew Mike White could do that. Mike White had proven time and time again he's capable of at least getting to the first or second round of the tournament.
He's only lost now once in the first round, and that was a pretty unlucky matchup against Gonzaga. So
yeah,
top 10 ping pong team.
But I mean, coming off, like remembering that the year prior they had lost to the 15 seed Oral Roberts in the second round, squandered a really easy path to the Sweet 16. So no, I think barring a deep run, I think Mike White was under a lot of pressure. I mean, frankly, I didn't think Mike White should have been retained that season at all. Like, I think the fact that they were going to bring him back if he hadn't left was bad business by Scott Strickland. But it is what it is. It all worked out.
And we'll end this segment here. Facts with the personnel we have on offense right now. Going 12 personnel is like driving a Lamborghini through a school zone. And I don't trust Billy to adapt. Hopefully he changes. This might just answer the question right here. How does Billy adapt the offense? Because if the defense is the same, a little better than it was last year, we know that's good enough to win top 25, top 10 matchups. It's all about, will the offense keep getting better to win those games consistently?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it have the potential. I mean, obviously we know what Lagway's capable of. I mean, we'll see. Billy keeps bringing in, he's not changing play callers, but he's at least bringing in other people bringing in inputs and philosophies. We'll see if they adapt. But I mean, I am just as skeptical as you are. And the only reason we're having this entire conversation right now is because we've just watched Todd Golden do in 3 years relative to his sport what Billy really hasn't come close to doing in the same time frame. So
absolutely, we'll end that there. You can catch the voice of college football live on your favorite audio platforms such as Apple Music, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Find us anywhere there. If you're listening in the car, going to sleep, and don't want to turn YouTube on, you can listen to us any of those places. You can also find the voice of college football content on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I have the Twitter right here. It's x.com/the voice of college football. They're posting stuff daily on the channels. On the Instagram, they posted a graphic of teams that have won basketball and football national championships. Obviously, a shout out to the Gators, as we are one of those teams, along with Ohio State, Maryland, possible matchup. Michigan State, Michigan, Stanford, Arkansas, Syracuse, UCLA, and Cal. So go check out those platforms, or go check out the channels accounts on Twitter and Instagram. It's the voice of college football, or at the VOCFB, short and condensed, so you don't have to type out and say like I have to do every time, the voice of college football. Any of them, go check them out. Leave a like, follow all those channels. So how we want to end this show, we'll say Kentucky won. Good win for them. And Alabama St. Mary's is keeping it within striking distance. As it is currently 10-point game with 6 minutes to go. And you never know. St. Mary's made a comeback against Vanderbilt last Friday morning. So St. Mary's could win it. They made their last 2 shots after starting 0 of 9. So from 3. So they're catching some heat now. But with that being said, Colorado State is currently up 37-30. Actually, let me do this. What are the matchups for the Gators heading into the second weekend of the NCAA tournament? Well, as we're live streaming this, Colorado State is currently up 37-30 on Maryland at halftime. It's a game that could still go either way. So we decided that we're just going to break down both teams here and give what our outlook on both of those matchups could potentially be. Who should we start with Colorado State since they are currently
Yeah,
winning
might
by
as
7.5?
well. They're the leader in the clubhouse right now. Let's do it.
All right, let me pull up my notes on Colorado State here. So Colorado State is led by a guard, NBA level player, Nick Clifford, averages 18.9 points per game. This is a Colorado State team that had a pretty tough start to the season, but now they've won. They haven't lost since February 11th, and that loss was at Utah State, a team who was a 10 seed. Yeah, they were a 10 seed, lost in their first round to UCLA. So this is a team that's caught fire. They did win their game by 8 against Memphis, a game where they led a majority of that time. A Memphis team that had won the AAC, a pretty hot team that also hadn't lost since early to mid-February. So Colorado State, they're a team that's looking really, really good right now. And as a 12 seed, making it to the Sweet 16 in a tournament that has lacked some upsets besides maybe Arkansas, which no one really wants to cheer for John Calipari and a 10 seed SEC team being the Cinderella. So having a 12 seed Colorado State going against a 1 seed Florida, that would really be the Cinderella of this tournament that the people would get behind, besides us, of course, because we want to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado State is really like the quintessential team that you kind of don't really want to draw at the mid like the non-big name team you don't want to draw, because they're, like you said, they are just red hot in what is a good and especially top heavy mid-major conference in the Mountain West. I mean, I think they've won 12 or 13 games in a row, something like that. So I mean, I think
it would be 12 with a win.
If they win tonight, it's 12.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, team that's been really red hot to end the season. Obviously that's a little not ideal. I will say this. I think this is the better matchup of the two for the Gators.
I would agree.
We'll get into it. We'll get into Maryland. But looking at the Colorado State side, like, tell me how you feel about it, because this was kind of when I was looking into Colorado State. This was kind of like where my mind went to. I'm curious if you agree or disagree. This, from a matchup perspective, feels a little bit like the Alabama matchup to me, in the sense that there's a really good guard who can hurt you in a lot of ways and can maybe take over a game, but you don't really worry about teams with great backcourts against us because of how good our backcourt is. You know what I mean?
When I look at possible mid-major matchups for Florida, I looked at Colorado State. The first thing I check is their size. Are they going to be able to physically impose on us? Because most of the teams that beat us, it's because they physically dominate us early in those games, besides like Missouri and Kentucky, I guess. But like you look at Georgia, Asa Newell had a really good start to that game because he was physically dominant. But you almost lost to South Carolina because Colin Murray Boyles was physically dominant for 23 minutes of that game, 27 minutes of that game. So I went here, I looked at Colorado, their top bigs. 6'8" sophomore Jalen Crocker-Johnson, averaging 9.1, 4.3. Good big, only 6'8". If you have that matchup on Micah Handlaughton or Ruben Chinulu or Alex Condon, we should be able to win that matchup. Then their second big, Rashawn Memba, 6'7", 7.2 points per game, 3.6 rebounds per game. These aren't guys that I'm going to worry about being able to physically impose their dominance on us. Our bigs, we should win that matchup pretty easily.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're able to score inside with their bigs on us, then they were the better team or they were better inside that game, plain and simple. So then you look at the guards. We've said it all year. Florida probably has the best guard trio in the country. Now, Colorado State has some pretty good guards. We talked about Nick Clifford, possible NBA guy, shoots 38.4% from three. Jalen Lake averages 11.2 points per game, shoots 34.6% from three, and Kyle Evans 10.6 points per game and has a 44.4% from three. Now I don't know what the number is on how many Kyle Evans takes a game, because I feel like I would have heard about him more if I knew he shot 44% from three.
Yeah.
I want to see how many he attempts. I mean, he attempts 2 a game, so he's not putting up a ton of those free throws. Oh wait, no, he puts up 5.3. He's putting up 4.5 3 attempts a game. So he's someone that can get red hot against us, which our other losses, Kentucky, Kobe Brea went like 6-7 or 7-10. and
Yeah.
Caleb Grill went at 6 of 7. So these are guys that statistically have the best chance to beat us.
Yeah, that is the counterpoint there, is that most of the games that Florida's lost this season, or at least you're not even necessarily lost, just it's struggled with, has been because the other team just gets really hot and shoots really well. Which of these two teams is more capable of having a game where they just shoot 60% from the field? Like, probably Colorado State.
Because I think another thing with Colorado State, even their bigs, Jalen Crocker Johnson shoots 37.8%, and then their other
Mhm.
one, Rashad Memba, 30%, and then they have a guard off the bench in Keyshawn Williams who also shoots 38%.
Yeah.
So if I'm worried about a team going off and having a crazy 15 3-pointer game against us, it would be Colorado State.
Yeah. So I guess my then counterpoint then is like, I mean, because I do think that's concerning. It's just like, which do you weigh more? Because like after watching that game today, I'm just like, give me a team that is not going to be, guarding our guards, being able to guard our guards that physically on the outside. Give me a team that isn't going to limit our ability to score points inside, because we really struggled in that regard today. They dominated the points in the paint,
Yeah.
at least unless it flipped in the final minutes, because it was a like 24-14 margin pretty late in the game in the points in the paint. So, is Colorado State capable of doing all that? Like, I don't think so. So to me, the proposition with them is just, can Florida keep this team from getting red hot? I think I like, if a team's only shot at beating Florida is getting red hot, I think I like my chances in that game.
And you even look at Colorado State, they're 54th on defense, which for a mid-major is good, but we've played teams ranked higher and dominated them offensively.
Yeah.
And really the teams that we've struggled against offensively wise, I mean, UConn that has size and physical guards.
Yeah.
And then we talked about South Carolina with Colin Murray Boyles. Arkansas that has size and athleticism. I don't see that from Colorado State. I don't see them being able to stop us inside or out.
Yeah.
So offensively, I'm really confident in our matchup against them. And defensively, I mean, there's going to have the only way they beat us, in my opinion, is if they have a lights out game shooting from 3.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of game where if Florida does lose to Colorado State, it would have to be like a 95-92 loss or something like that. You know what I mean?
So then getting into Maryland, I mean, this is a team a lot of people really liked, calling them the Crab Five after the Michigan Fab Five. I mean, you look at their starting lineup: Derek Queen, 16.2 points per game; Jacoby Gillespie, 14.7 points per game; Rodney Rice, 13.8; Julian Reese, 13.3; and Selton Miguel, 12.0. All 5 starters averaging over 12 points per game. Here's the key here, though, I'm about to point out. Their 6th man, or is he 6th man in minutes? Yes, 6th man. Or no, he's not, but in points.
Yeah.
Tafara
Gapare? I assume Gapare?
3.5 points per game. Deshaun Harris-Smith, who is 6th man, 2.6 points per game. This is a team that gets nothing from their bench. It's all on their starting lineup. Now, this is as good as starting lineup in the country. If basketball games were just 15, 20 minutes and you're just playing your starting lineups, Maryland would probably be a top 10 team in the country. Because Derek Queen's going to be a lottery draft pick. Jacoby Gillespie, really good guard. Same with Rodney Rice and Selton Miguel. So this is a team that, I mean, we talked about it earlier when we were saying if we were able to dominate UConn after dominating Norfolk State, that they could get hot early and get us into some trouble and get into a deficit. It probably would be Maryland, where their guards are going to be able to shoot threes. They're big. They have good, strong bigs and Derek Queen and Julian Reese, to where they can get a hot start offensively with a really good starting lineup.
Yeah, like what worries me about this matchup a little bit is just because I think, as much as I do like Florida's bigs, I think Florida's bigs have been vulnerable at times against the very, very best bigs they've had to play this year. They've been
besides Janai Broom.
Besides Janai Broom for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah. So does that worry me against guys, Derek Queen averaging 9.2 boards, Julian Reese averaging 9.0 boards? Like, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I do worry that this could be a game where Florida kind of gets out physicaled inside, which is not something that this seems particularly accustomed to. Yeah, George, there you go. I mean,
George, I don't care who we play because we have the better team. It's all about the team, the team, the team. I saw that line from Bo Schembeckler. And George, he's promising us that we're going to win the next game. So there it is, guys.
there you go.
We're winning.
You got the
George
You got
promised.
the George guarantee.
Yep.
And you know
I'm
who to
set.
blame if they don't. We all know whose fault it is if the Gators don't win that next game. So George, we're all going to be coming back to you next week.
Absolutely. All right, you can. You were saying, sorry.
Yeah. No, so I just like I think the bottom line of what I was saying is like you do worry about like I think Maryland is a team that's built to throw Florida off its game more than Colorado State is. But I think it's going to be really hard to do that with the depth issues they have because unlike Florida, there isn't a Thomas Houck who's going to come off the bench and maybe drop 17 and be just an absolute force on defense and on the boards. There's no 7'1" or 7'2" center just coming in as a rebounding machine. You know, you don't have a guy who can maybe be a spot 3 shooter in Irvine. And we're talking about that's getting into the deep depth. I mean, you got Aberdeen and like it's hard to imagine that Maryland has what it takes to win this game unless their starting 5 just is incredible and truly all do like 1-for-1 win those battles against their Florida counterparts.
Yeah, what I was saying here, our guards just don't put bigs in foul trouble, which if they were able to do that against Maryland, it would probably be game over for Maryland if they lose out on Derek Queen and Julian Reese. I think it's Reese. I don't know why, but I think it's Reese.
Wait, isn't that? I'm almost positive that's Angel Reese's brother.
Is it? Maybe I'm probably wrong. Baltimore.
Positive. Yeah, I'm.
You know what? You're actually right. You're right. I don't know who is Reese. There's someone named Reese. I can't remember who, but it's just familiar. But one thing I will say here that I really like, looking at Maryland starters and their shooting. Derek Queen 14.3% from 3, and Julian Reese 0% from 3. They cannot. Yep, 0. They have no stretching of the floor outside of their 3 guards. Now, the 3 guards, Jacoby Gillespie 41%, Rodney Rice 37%, and Selton Miguel 37%. So they're really good 3-point shooters, but their bigs cannot shoot it. Like Thomas Houck for us can come in and shoots it at a 35% clip. Condon's at like 30%. The other bigs don't really shoot it, but still, we usually have at least one big on the floor who can shoot. Maryland doesn't. They're not. I mean, they're lucky to get 1-3 from Derek Queen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they don't have the versatility. Like I think it is a much. I think Florida is the much more versatile and deeper team. I really think like if you don't get if you can just be like even on the boards when the Maryland starters are on the court, like if you're just not getting out rebounded when their starters are on the court, like Florida should be fine in this game, honestly.
I could see this game kind of going like the Tennessee game, and that's like maybe
the championship one.
Yeah, the championship game to where it's pretty close. Florida has a slight edge in the first half. Yeah. And then it's like a 5-point game at half or whatever. Oh, did I leave that up there? Or did you put that? Whoops.
If I did, I didn't mean to.
Okay. To where it's a close game. I would assume we would have a slight lead at half because I do think we are better. And then by the second half, we're able to kind of extend that lead because their depth is just non-existent. So they're going to get wore out. They're going to get tired. We're going to be able to get our bigs in there because they're going to try to feed their bigs. Maryland is. But then by that 30th minute, if you're having a Ruben Chignolo who's played 15 minutes going against a Derek Queen who's played 30 minutes or 25 minutes, I mean, that's a matchup I really like for Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think both of these potential Sweet 16 matchups, I think they portend very different games and different styles of play, but I think both of them are pretty favorable. I mean, I think I'll just put it this way, and maybe we're going to get into predictions, but I think both of these matchups are more favorable for the Gators than UConn was.
Yep, because we talked about it when we were reviewing the game. The thing that made Florida struggle was UConn's size with their guards. When you look at Colorado State, obviously they don't have the most talented guys. They don't have that athleticism and size like UConn does. I talked about it. UConn has 9 top 100 recruits. And neither does Maryland. As you look at their guards, Jacoby Gillespie was a Belmont transfer. Shout out Will Richard. Rodney Rice was a Virginia Tech transfer. He's 6'4", so he has some size to him, but he doesn't have the size like a Liam McNeely or even what Solo Ball has. And then their other guard is also 6'4", and I'm pretty sure he's also a Kansas State and USF transfer now. So these guys aren't the talented guys that we were playing against UConn. They're not going to be able to just physically impose themselves on our guards like UConn was able to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's. I think UConn was honestly, between the on-court and just the off-court psychology, like pretty uniquely like one of the worst matchups Florida could have seen before the Elite Eight.
Now, I will say Maryland does have the 6th ranked defense on KenPom.
Okay.
Now, how much of that is against a worse Big Ten than the SEC, where they didn't have to play maybe as many good players and their depth wasn't too big of a concern?
Hey, is the Big Ten still undefeated?
No. Illinois just lost. And
true.
Last night, Wisconsin lost to BYU.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. Yeah.
It looks like Bama's going to hold on against St. Mary's. At least.
Bama's pulling away. They're up 13 with minute 42.
All right, so you want to get into predictions here?
Yeah, let's do it.
So if we play Colorado State, what's your prediction?
If we play Colorado State, I will say the Gators win it 92-83.
Yeah, my number was also 92 in offense.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was going to be 92-80.
92-80? Okay. So we're pretty similar ballpark there.
I don't know what the spread's going to be. I assume it's going to be 10 plus like UConn was.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to say maybe a backdoor cover from Colorado State if we did that. So I'm going to take 92-80. Maybe we score a little bit because of some free throws or whatever. If we played Maryland, my score projection would be 82-71.
Okay. I'd say like 80-74.
Okay. We're both taking 82 and 92. Okay. We both like that 2 at the end there.
No, sorry, 80, like 80, 80.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So we both have closer matchups against Maryland, lower scoring versus the Colorado State higher scoring matchups, which is pretty indicative of what we just discussed the entire time. I don't think Colorado State's going to be able to guard us. And I think there's going to be a point against Maryland where they're just too tired, and we're probably going to go on a bit of a run there to be able to take a sufficient lead to feel comfortable.
Yeah. I would rather play Colorado State here, but I think either way, it's a matchup I feel pretty good about. And the only way I see Florida really losing against either of those teams is if they come out and play very uncharacteristically outside of today sloppy, I guess.
Yeah. I will say before we wrap this up here, the games on Thursday will either be at 7, 7:30, 10, or 10:30. So I don't know how much that could factor in because the games will be in San Fran. Now, maybe you would rather play Maryland because Colorado State is a lot closer to San Francisco than College. Is it College Park? Where's Maryland at?
Yeah, College Park.
They're also College Park, like Penn State is, right?
Penn State's State College.
State College, okay. But so, yeah, a lot closer for Colorado State than it is for Maryland. Now, Colorado State will just be traveling back from, where are they playing? I think they're actually playing out west right now. Where is that region right now?
That's a great question. I honestly don't know.
I'm double checking. Tournament locations. All right. Of course, that doesn't have it.
Hold on one second.
NCAA.com changes everything. Or we'll play it in the background.
Hold on, I got you.
I think they're playing in Denver.
No, they're in Seattle.
They're in Seattle. Okay. So, I mean, and that may explain, I mean, that could be the difference in Colorado State beating Maryland. That's some elevation right there. Far out west, time zones are a big difference between 1 hour, I think, for Colorado State and 2 or 3 for Maryland, right? So
Yeah, it's like 3-time differences versus 1 for Colorado. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much the Rams fans travel. I mean, I know Mountain West basketball is a pretty big deal, but I don't know if the Rams, if Colorado State fans travel like that. But I don't know if Maryland fans do either, for that matter. So
hey, but it could be a difference, and any little thing counts.
homecoming for Todd. Homecoming for Todd going back to San
Yep.
Francisco. Well, he's not from there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, coached at San Francisco, led to the NCAA tournament, so it is a bit of homecoming for him.
Yeah.
At this time, before we end up leaving the show, Maryland is currently up 42-33, 4 of 11 from 3.
Colorado State's up.
Yeah, Colorado State. Sorry. Yeah. Both shooting pretty well from 3 right now, so like 40+%. So, I mean, it looked good offensively. Could draw some trouble for us, but I like our matchups against both teams, and
yeah, I do too.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if we run either of those teams out the building after that game against UConn.
Yeah, today really felt like the major test, like the hurdle that this team had to get over.
Who did we play after we played South Carolina? And we won by 1 point.
What? When?
Earlier in the year, after beating South Carolina by 1 point on that game-winning layup from Will Richard.
Oh, okay.
After that game, we went and beat Georgia by 30 points.
That's right.
So, maybe we still beat Georgia by 30 points because we were a wagon at home this year. But maybe not. Maybe if we just cruise against South Carolina, we go and beat Georgia by 10, 15 points.
Yeah.
So, and then we lost to Tennessee. I mean, Vanderbilt's pretty good teams, and we only beat them by 11. And then Georgia, obviously, we lost to Georgia, and then we beat Texas A&M by 19. So we're pretty good after coming off close games or even losses. Even North Carolina, where is that game? Oh, wait, North Carolina was that last game. Never mind. Okay. I was going to say we beat Arizona State by like 17 after barely beating North Carolina, but we played Arizona State before North Carolina, so that didn't have an impact. Is there anything else you want to say before we hop off?
No, look, I just think, I was obviously not feeling great for a lot of this game today. I think Florida played far from its best basketball, but the fact that it ultimately won against a team that well coached, and then with that track record of success in the tournament, that to me said a lot about just the sort of the gumption this team has. And I think that, I think they needed a game like that. I think they needed a wake-up call that they're not necessarily as good as everyone who's picking them to win the national title says they are, or at least they can be worse than that. I think it just gives me a lot of confidence. I think this team kind of needed some adversity to get over. And Todd, obviously now has 2 career tournament wins. Norfolk State won, whatever. This is his first real win in an NCAA tournament battle. And I think, and also what George said.
Yeah, won't say it live, but
yeah,
it was nice making Hurley cry.
Yeah,
kind of like Nick when you beat Nick Saban, when a team beat Nick Saban, that's kind of how it feels. Like Nick Saban obviously wasn't going to cry, but they were dominant for so long that when those few times they lost, or UConn coming off back-to-back national championships, for us to be able to end it, it was nice. I'll leave my final thoughts here. I'm so excited to be going back to the second weekend of March Madness. It really rejuvenates thing as a college basketball fan. And now watching all of these games and being like, oh, we're better than them. And I just know we are. It's a nice feeling. So we will see you guys next Sunday. We'll probably do a preview of our Elite Eight matchup. Not a live stream, but we'll do a preview of our Elite Eight matchup before, if we win our Sweet 16 matchup, of course. Yeah. So we'll have that probably out on a Friday. Before maybe Saturday morning, if we beat that Colorado State or Maryland, which is a really close game, real fun game. So I'm gonna hop off, watch that. We'll see you guys next time, and as always, go Gators.